All right, so get this. This week we're tackling the August 2nd issue of Science magazine.
Okay.
And let me tell you, it's a wild ride. We're talking about using gene editing to make plants less prickly.
Hmm.
The debate about whether it's really the humidity that gets you during a heat wave,
Right.
and even what ancient mummies can tell us about modern diseases.
Yeah, what's fascinating is how these seemingly unrelated stories all connect back to the same question.
Hmm.
How can science help us understand the past and prepare for the future?
Okay, let's unpack this whole prickly plant thing.
Okay.
Scientists are using CRISPR to tinker with plant prickles. I thought CRISPR was for, like, serious medical stuff.
You're right, CRISPR does have huge implications for human health, but it's also a powerful tool for understanding plant genetics. In this case, researchers used CRISPR to identify the genes that control prickle development in a wide range of plants, everything from roses to tomatoes.
So no more thorns on my roses. Sign me up. But seriously, why is this a big deal?
It's not just about making roses less prickly. This research helps us understand the evolution of prickliness.
Okay.
They found that prickles have evolved independently at least 28 times across different plant species.
28 times. That's a lot of prickly evolution. What's the advantage of having all those thorns?
Prickles serve different purposes depending on the plant. They can deter animals from eating them,
Right.
provide structural support, or even help with seed dispersal by catching onto fur. It's a great example of how evolution leads to elegant solutions for survival.
Survival of the prickliest, I guess? This next article had me a bit concerned, and not just because it's about heat waves.
Hmm.
It really made me question what I thought I knew about humidity.
Ah, yes, the great humidity
Mm.
debate. It's something everyone has an opinion on.
Right.
This article does a great job of presenting both sides of the argument. On one side, you have physiologists who study how the human body works. Their research shows that high humidity makes it harder for our bodies to cool down because sweat can't evaporate as easily.
Right.
This can lead to heat stroke, which is obviously dangerous.
That makes total sense. So what's the counter-argument?
Epidemiologists who study patterns of disease have a different perspective.
Oh, okay.
They analyze large data sets of weather and mortality rates, and their findings suggest that temperature alone is a very strong predictor of heat-related deaths.
Mm-hmm.
Adding humidity to their models doesn't seem to improve their predictions significantly.
So what does this mean for me? Should I be panicking about humid heat waves or not?
The key takeaway is that extreme heat is dangerous, period. While the jury is still out on how much of a role humidity plays, both sides agree that we need to take extreme heat warnings seriously and take steps to stay cool and hydrated regardless of the humidity level.
That's actually really helpful. It's a good reminder to pay attention to those heat advisories.
Okay.
Now, how about we switch gears and talk about something a bit older, like a lot older? I'm talking ancient mummies and the secrets they might hold.
This is where the field of paleogenomics comes in.
Okay.
Scientists are using amazing technology to extract DNA from ancient pathogens found in mummies and other archaeological finds.
Wait, they can get DNA from something that old. That's incredible. What kind of things are they hoping to learn?
The goal is to understand how diseases have evolved over time and how those ancient pathogens might be connected to diseases we see today. For example, researchers have found evidence of the bacteria that causes the plague, Yersinia pestis, in the teeth of individuals who lived during the Black Death.
So they can actually see how the plague bacteria has changed over hundreds of years.
Exactly. They compare the genomes of these ancient strains to modern ones to track how the bacteria has evolved and to potentially identify new targets for antibiotics.
So it's like these ancient microbes are little time capsules that could help us develop new treatments for modern diseases.
That's the idea, and it's not limited to infectious diseases.
Okay.
Scientists are also using paleogenomics to study the evolution of the human microbiome.
The microbiome, that's all the bacteria and stuff that lives in our gut, right? I've heard it's super important for our health.
You're right. The microbiome plays a huge role in everything from digestion to immunity. By studying the microbiomes of ancient populations, scientists can learn how factors like diet, environment, and even cultural practices might have influenced the evolution of our gut bacteria.
So you're telling me that my gut bacteria could be different from my great-great-great-grandparents' gut bacteria because of how lifestyles have changed?
It's a definite possibility. And this research could have big implications for understanding modern diseases like obesity, autoimmune disorders, and even allergies.
It's amazing to think that something that happened so long ago could still be affecting us today. It makes you wonder what other secrets are hidden in those ancient bones and what they can teach us about our own health.
Speaking of secrets, this next article dives into a controversy that shook up the scientific community. It involves a major research project that was abruptly shut down due to disagreements over how to incorporate indigenous knowledge into scientific research.
Oh, this is the one about the U.S. National Academies of Sciences canceling that big study. What happened there?
The study was focused on the idea of co-production in research.
Okay.
Basically, this means bringing together Western scientists and holders of indigenous knowledge to work as equal partners in designing, conducting, and interpreting research. The goal is to create a more equitable and inclusive research process that respects different ways of knowing and understanding the world.
That sounds like a really valuable approach, especially when studying topics that are deeply connected to indigenous cultures and traditions.
Absolutely. And that's what makes the collapse of this study so disappointing.
Oh, no.
The National Academies had secured funding with the intention of producing a traditional consensus report where they have the final say. However, the committee tasked with conducting the study, which included indigenous scholars, strongly believed in practicing co-production throughout the entire research process.
So there was a clash of visions. The National Academies wanted a more traditional approach, while the committee wanted to genuinely share the reins.
It's exactly. The committee felt strongly that indigenous voices should be shaping the research questions and methods, not just being consulted after the fact.
Wow.
Unfortunately, the National Academies didn't agree, and the disagreement ultimately led to the cancellation of the entire study.
It's a shame that such a promising project fell apart. Hopefully they learned from the experience. Okay, ready for something completely different? Let's journey back in time, way back to the Ice Age.
Ooh, a journey through time sounds like a nice change of pace. This next article really challenges the traditional narrative about what causes ice ages. You've probably heard that they're caused by changes in Earth's orbit around the sun, right?
Yeah, I remember learning about those Milankovitch cycles back in school. They influence how much sunlight hits different parts of the Earth at different times, which can trigger these long-term climate cycles.
Exactly. Those orbital variations definitely play a role, but this new research suggests they might not be the whole story, at least not for a major climate shift called mid-Pleistocene transition. This happened over 1 million years ago, and it dramatically changed the pattern of ice ages on Earth.
The article called it the most enigmatic global climate change event of the last few million years. That sounds pretty intense. What are they proposing caused it?
Get this. They're saying that the growth of the Antarctic ice sheet might have been the real trigger for this global climate shift,
Okay.
not just changes in Earth's orbit.
Hold on. You're saying that Antarctica was calling the shots for the entire planet's climate? How could one ice sheet have that much power?
Think about it like this. The oceans and the atmosphere are constantly interacting and influencing each other.
Okay.
As the Antarctic ice sheet grew larger, it pushed huge amounts of cold, dense water into the Southern Ocean.
Right.
This changed ocean currents, which in turn affected atmospheric circulation patterns. These changes had ripple effects across the globe, eventually leading to the expansion of ice sheets in the northern hemisphere as well.
Okay, so it's like a chain reaction starting in Antarctica. And this ultimately led to the classic ice age conditions we imagine with glaciers covering huge parts of the northern hemisphere.
Precisely. And what's really cool is that they have geological evidence to back it up.
Oh, wow.
They found that the Antarctic ice sheet began expanding significantly long before the mid-Pleistocene transition, while the northern hemisphere ice sheets didn't start growing rapidly until later. The timing matches up.
So are we talking about rewriting the textbooks on the Ice Age? What other evidence supports this theory?
They also found evidence of increased iron in sediments from the South Atlantic around this time, which suggests a link between Antarctic ice growth and changes in ocean nutrient cycles. Plus, they see signs of increased dryness in parts of Australia, indicating shifts in atmospheric patterns caused by the expanding Antarctic ice sheet.
Wow, so the pieces really seem to fit together. It makes you realize how much we still have to learn about how our planet's climate system works, especially with all the concerns about climate change today.
Absolutely. Understanding past climate change can give us valuable insights into how the Earth responds to these kinds of shifts. Speaking of understanding the planet, there's an interesting piece here about how scientists are trying to integrate nature into U.S. federal policy.
Mainstreaming nature. What does that even mean? Are we going to start seeing trees in the halls of Congress?
Not quite, but the idea is to move beyond just protecting a few national parks. It's about recognizing that nature underpins everything, our economy, our health, our well-being.
Right.
They're talking about integrating the consideration of nature into every policy decision
Wow.
across all government agencies.
So it's not just the job of the Environmental Protection Agency anymore. Everyone needs to be thinking about nature.
Exactly. The authors argue that we need integrated policies across transportation,
Okay.
agriculture,
Okay.
energy, even defense. For example, instead of just thinking about the most efficient routes for highways, transportation planners would also need to consider the impact on wildlife corridors and the potential for green infrastructure to reduce pollution.
That makes a lot of sense. But how do they propose actually doing this? How do you get everyone on the same page?
They lay out 4 key criteria for successful mainstreaming efforts: cross-sectoral, appropriate, strategic, and evidence-based. We've already touched on cross-sectoral, which means involving all those different government agencies. Appropriate refers to the need to tailor policies to specific places and situations, recognizing that one size doesn't fit all.
So what works in the forests of Oregon might not work in the deserts of Arizona.
Right.
Context matters. What about strategic?
Strategic mainstreaming means focusing on policies that offer multiple benefits. For example, investing in urban parks not only benefits nature, but also creates recreational opportunities, improves air quality, and can even reduce crime rates. It's about finding those win-win solutions.
Win-win is always good. And lastly, they say these policies need to be evidence-based.
That's right. Decisions about managing and conserving nature should be grounded in the best available science. This means investing in research, data collection, and modeling to understand the complexities of ecosystems and how they're responding to human activities.
So it's not just about warm, fuzzy feelings for nature. It's about making smart decisions based on solid data.
Right.
The article mentions some examples of how the U.S. government is already starting to incorporate these principles.
One really encouraging example is a memorandum from the Office of Management and Budget that instructs federal agencies to consider nature-based solutions when funding infrastructure projects.
Okay.
This could mean choosing green infrastructure, like permeable pavements and bioswales over traditional concrete, which is a huge environmental footprint.
Okay, so real-world changes are already happening. Any other promising examples?
They also highlighted the creation of the National Nature Assessment. This is like a massive health checkup for the nation's ecosystems.
Wow.
They're assessing the health of our forests, rivers, wetlands, and all the benefits they provide, like clean air, clean water, and flood protection. This kind of information is crucial for making informed decisions about conservation and restoration priorities.
It's like taking the pulse of the planet. It sounds like things are slowly moving in the right direction, but is it enough?
The authors acknowledge that there's still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
They emphasize the need for more research to fill knowledge gaps, better tools for measuring the economic and social benefits of nature, and greater public engagement to build support for these mainstreaming efforts.
It sounds like a call to action for everyone. Scientists, policymakers, and everyday citizens. If the U.S. is starting to make these changes, it makes you wonder what's happening in other parts of the world.
It's definitely a global movement. More and more countries are realizing that healthy ecosystems are essential for a healthy economy and a sustainable future. There's a growing understanding that investing in nature can be a cost-effective way to address challenges like climate change, biodiversity loss, and even social inequality.
It's a good reminder that we're all connected to nature, whether we realize it or not.
Speaking of connections, this next article caught my eye because it highlights the often overlooked costs of scientific publishing, even in the age of open access.
Oh yeah, open access. The idea is that anyone should be able to read scientific research without hitting a paywall, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Open access has been hailed as a major win for the democratization of knowledge. The problem is, it's created a new set of challenges for researchers, especially those in lower-income countries or working in fields with less funding.
So what's the downside of open access?
Many journals have shifted their business model to make up for lost revenue from subscriptions.
Okay.
Now they often charge authors something called article processing charges, or APCs, to publish their work in open access journals.
So while readers get free access, researchers have to pay up. How much are we talking?
These APCs can be substantial, sometimes thousands of dollars per article. For a well-funded lab in a wealthy country, that might not be a deal breaker. But for researchers in developing countries or those just starting out, it can be a huge burden.
That seems unfair. It creates a system where only those with money can afford to publish their research, which seems counter to the whole idea of open access.
Exactly. The article raises concerns about these fees exacerbating existing inequalities in science. There are systems for waivers and discounts, but even those can be complicated and time-consuming to navigate.
It's ironic that a system designed to make science more accessible could actually create new barriers for some researchers.
It's a complex issue without easy answers. The article highlights the need for publishers, funders, and research institutions to work together to find more equitable and sustainable models for open access publishing.
It's a good reminder that even something as fundamental as sharing research findings is entangled with issues of access, equity, and financial resources.
Speaking of reminding ourselves about important things, this next little piece in the letter section really resonated with me. It's about a teacher in Israel who used a global biodiversity project to engage her students in a really creative way.
Oh, I love stories about innovative teachers. What was this project about?
It's called This Is My Earth, and it's like a global campaign run by kids. Students from all over the world learn about biodiversity hotspots that are threatened by things like deforestation, pollution, and climate change.
Right.
They then have to make a case for why their chosen site should be protected, and the students vote on which site gets their collective support.
It sounds like a fun way to teach kids about conservation and get them invested in protecting the planet.
Exactly. This teacher had her students research 3 different biodiversity hotspots, one in Belize, one in Ecuador, and one in Madagascar.
Wow.
They had to dive deep into the ecology of each place, learning about the unique plants and animals that live there and the threats they face.
I bet the kids love that. So which site did they choose?
They ended up advocating for an area in Ecuador that's part of an important ecological corridor. But what's really cool is that the project sparked conversations outside the classroom. The teacher mentioned how she overheard the cashier at her supermarket talking about the project with another customer.
Wow, really?
They were both really engaged in the debate about which site deserved the most protection.
Wow, so it even got adults talking about biodiversity. That's the mark of a successful education project.
It really is. This teacher found a way to make learning about conservation come alive for her students. And it even inspired people in her community.
It's a good reminder that small actions can have a big impact. Sometimes all it takes is a spark of inspiration to ignite a passion for learning and a desire to make a difference. Speaking of inspiring discoveries, this next article takes us deep inside the human brain, exploring the connection between our gut feelings, and I mean literally our gut and our immune system.
It might sound strange, but there's a growing body of research showing that the gut and the brain are in constant communication
Right.
and influence each other in some pretty surprising ways.
I've heard about the gut-brain axis, but I always assumed it was more about things like stress affecting digestion. How does the immune system fit into all of this?
This study focused on a particular type of nerve cell called nociceptors. You actually have them all over your body, and their job is to sense pain and send those signals to your brain.
So these are the nerves that let me know when I've stubbed my toe or touched something hot.
Exactly. But it turns out nociceptors in the gut also play a role in regulating our immune response,
Wow.
specifically in the colon.
Hold on. Pain receptors in my gut are talking to my immune system. How did they figure that out?
The researchers used a really clever technique called chemogenetics, which allows them to activate specific groups of neurons in mice.
Okay.
Basically, they could turn on these pain-sensing neurons in the gut and observe what happened.
So what did they find? Did it give the mice tummy aches?
Well, they found that chronic activation of these nociceptors led to a decrease in regulatory T cells, or TREGs, in the colon.
TREGs. Those are the ones that help keep the immune system in check, right? Like making sure it doesn't accidentally attack the body's own cells.
Exactly.
Okay.
TREGs are essential for maintaining a healthy immune balance.
Right.
The fact that activating these pain-sensing neurons led to fewer TREGs suggests a link between pain signaling and immune regulation in the gut.
So are you saying that chronic pain in the gut could actually mess with my immune system?
That's one possibility. The researchers found that the mice with chronically activated nociceptors were more susceptible to developing colitis, which is a chronic inflammatory bowel disease. This suggests a potential link between these pain signals and the development of inflammatory conditions in the gut.
That's kind of scary. But why would our bodies be wired this way? What's the evolutionary advantage of connecting pain and immunity in the gut?
That's a great question, and one that researchers are still trying to figure out.
Right.
One theory is that it's a defense mechanism against harmful pathogens.
Okay, that makes sense. So how would pain protect us from getting sick?
Imagine you eat some food that's contaminated with bacteria.
Okay.
Your gut senses the danger
Yeah.
and triggers a pain response, which essentially tells your brain, hey, something's wrong here. At the same time, activating those nociceptors triggers an immune response. sending immune cells to fight off the invaders.
So it's like a built-in alarm system that helps prevent us from getting sick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it seems this system can also backfire, particularly if those pain signals are constantly firing, which can happen in chronic pain conditions. This research opens up a whole new way of thinking about chronic pain and inflammatory diseases, highlighting the importance of understanding how the nervous system and the immune system communicate, especially in the gut.
It's amazing how much we're still learning about the human body and how all these different systems are interconnected.
Speaking of interconnected systems, the microscopic world just got a whole lot clearer thanks to a groundbreaking new technique for visualizing delicate biological structures.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What kind of technique are we talking about?
It's a new approach to electron microscopy. You're probably familiar with the amazing images from electron microscopes, those incredibly detailed close-ups of things like viruses and even individual atoms.
Yeah, those images are mind-blowing, but don't they use really high-energy beams to create those images?
They do, and that's part of the problem.
Okay.
Those powerful electron beams can damage delicate biological samples, making it difficult to get clear images without destroying what you're trying to study.
So how does this new technique work?
It's called an event-responsive approach, which basically means the microscope only uses the electron beam when it absolutely needs to,
Oh,
minimizing the damage to the sample.
event responsive. That sounds very precise. Walk me through it.
Imagine it like this. Instead of constantly bombarding the sample with electrons, they use short bursts of the electron beam that are triggered by the detection of individual electrons.
So they're only using the beam when they know it's going to hit something important.
Exactly. And by measuring the time it takes to detect those electrons, they can still build up a high-resolution image. They tested this technique on a variety of materials and found that it significantly reduced damage while still producing incredibly detailed images.
Wow, so it's like they found a way to see the microscopic world without disturbing it. What does this mean for research?
It has the potential to revolutionize how we study delicate biological materials like proteins, viruses, and even cell membranes.
Right.
We could see these structures in unprecedented detail, opening up whole new avenues of research and discovery.
It's amazing how technological advances like this can completely change our understanding of the world around us, from the vastness of space to the intricate details of a single cell.
Speaking of vastness, let's shift our focus to the incredible discoveries being made by the James Webb Space Telescope.
Ah, the James Webb. It feels like every other week there's a new mind-blowing image from that thing.
It really is revolutionizing astronomy.
Right. Yeah.
It's more powerful than the Hubble Space Telescope.
Right.
And it can see further back in time than ever before, allowing us to observe the universe as it was just a few 100 million years after the Big Bang.
So we're talking about seeing the very first stars and galaxies that formed after the Big Bang.
Exactly. One of the most exciting discoveries so far has been the detection of galaxies that formed much earlier in the universe's history than we previously thought possible.
Wow.
These galaxies are surprisingly massive and complex, which challenges our existing models of galaxy formation and evolution.
So once again, science is rewriting the history books. What else have we learned from the James Webb?
It's also incredibly good at studying the atmospheres of exoplanets. Those are planets that orbit stars other than our sun. By analyzing the light that passes through these atmospheres, scientists can identify the presence of different molecules, including things like water, methane, and carbon dioxide.
Wait, so they can tell what's in the air of a planet that's light years away. Are we talking about finding alien life?
Well, not quite yet, but identifying these molecules is a crucial step in determining whether a planet could potentially support life as we know it.
It's mind-blowing to think how far we've come in our exploration of the universe. Who knows what other secrets the James Webb will uncover? Now, on to something a little closer to home, although no less mind-blowing.
Yeah.
This next article about bioelectronics caught my eye. It seems like we're on the verge of merging biology and technology in some truly incredible ways.
Bioelectronics is a fascinating field that's exploring the interface between living systems and electronic devices. It has the potential to revolutionize everything, from medicine to prosthetics to our understanding of the brain.
Okay, so we're talking cyborgs and brain implants. Sign me up.
Yeah.
But seriously, what are some of the real-world applications of this technology?
Imagine being able to control a prosthetic limb with your thoughts or monitor your health in real time with implantable sensors. These are just a couple of the possibilities that bioelectronics is exploring.
That sounds like something out of science fiction.
It does, but it's becoming a reality. Researchers have already developed biocompatible electrodes that can be implanted in the brain to record neural activity with incredible precision.
So we can literally listen in on the brain's conversations. What are the implications of that?
It's giving us a whole new understanding of how the brain works, paving the way for new treatments for conditions like epilepsy, Parkinson's disease, and even paralysis.
That's incredible. And what about those mind-controlled prosthetics you mentioned? Are those actually working?
They're getting there. Researchers have successfully developed prosthetic limbs that can be controlled by signals from the brain, allowing amputees to regain a sense of touch and dexterity. We're talking about restoring lost functions and dramatically improving people's quality of life.
It's like something out of a superhero movie. What else is on the horizon for bioelectronics?
And the possibilities seem endless.
Right.
Researchers are working on bioelectronic devices that can deliver drugs directly to target tissues, monitor glucose levels in people with diabetes, and even create artificial retinas for people who are blind. This field is moving incredibly fast, and it's only a matter of time before we see even more amazing breakthroughs.
It's both exciting and a little bit intimidating to think about the implications of merging biology and technology in this way. But on a slightly less futuristic note, I was intrigued by this article about making concrete more environmentally friendly.
It might seem like a boring topic, but it's actually incredibly important. Traditional concrete production is a huge contributor to greenhouse gas emissions.
Right.
It accounts for about 8% of global carbon dioxide emissions.
Wow, I had no idea concrete was such a big polluter. What are they doing to try to change that?
Researchers are developing a variety of green concrete technologies that aim to reduce the environmental impact of construction.
Green concrete, so what makes it so green?
It involves using alternative materials with a lower carbon footprint, reducing the amount of cement needed, and even incorporating materials that can capture carbon dioxide from the atmosphere.
So concrete can actually help fight climate change. How does that work?
One promising approach is using industrial byproducts like fly ash and slag, which would otherwise end up in landfills. These materials can replace some of the cement in concrete, reducing its carbon footprint while also improving its performance.
So it's a win-win for the environment and for building stronger structures.
Exactly. And some researchers are even exploring ways to incorporate carbon capture technologies into concrete production.
Okay.
This means capturing carbon dioxide from industrial processes or directly from the air and storing it within the concrete itself.
That's amazing. So we could be building buildings that actually absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere.
That's the idea. And it's encouraging to see so much innovation happening in this area. It's a reminder that even something as seemingly mundane as concrete can be a source of progress and positive change.
It's a good reminder to never underestimate the power of human ingenuity.
Speaking of ingenuity, this next article explores the fascinating world of ancient pathogens and what they can teach us about modern diseases.
Wait, are we going back in time again? I'm always up for a good time travel adventure.
Consider this our final stop on this deep dive into Science magazine. And it's a fascinating one. Scientists are using paleogenomics, which involves extracting DNA from ancient microbes found in places like mummies, archaeological sites, and even permafrost, to gain a new perspective on the diseases that have plagued humanity throughout history.
So they're like microbial archaeologists piecing together the history of disease from ancient DNA fragments.
Exactly. For example, by analyzing the genomes of ancient strains of Mycobacterium tuberculosis, the bacterium that causes tuberculosis, they discovered that it was present in the Americas long before European contact, overturning previous assumptions about the disease's origins.
Wow, so tuberculosis wasn't brought over by Columbus. That's a pretty significant historical correction.
It is. And these findings are important not just for rewriting history, but also for understanding how diseases evolve and spread over time. By comparing these ancient genomes to modern ones, scientists can track the mutations that have occurred and identify the factors that might have driven those changes.
So it's like having a genetic time machine that allows us to trace the evolution of a disease over centuries or even millennia. But how does this help us combat diseases today?
This research provides invaluable insights into the origins of diseases, their virulence, and their potential for resistance to treatment. For example, by studying ancient strains of the influenza virus, scientists hope to gain a better understanding of the factors that contribute to pandemics and potentially develop more effective vaccines.
So those ancient pathogens could hold clues to preventing future outbreaks.
Exactly. And it's not just infectious diseases. Paleogenomics is also shedding light on the evolution of the human microbiome.
The microbiome, that's all the bacteria and other microbes that live in and on our bodies, right?
You got it. And it plays a crucial role in our overall health. By studying the microbiomes of ancient populations, scientists are discovering just how much our gut bacteria have changed over time, likely in response to factors like diet, environment, and even cultural practices.
So you're saying that the gut bacteria of someone who lived thousands of years ago could be vastly different from ours today.
That's exactly what the research is showing. And these differences could have significant implications for understanding modern health issues. For example, there's growing evidence that the decline in microbial diversity in the modern gut, which has been linked to things like the overuse of antibiotics and processed foods, might be contributing to the rise of chronic diseases like obesity, autoimmune disorders, and allergies.
It's amazing to think that something as small as the bacteria in our gut could have such a profound impact on our overall health and well-being.
It's a humbling thought. It reminds us that we're not just individuals, but complex ecosystems, shaped by the trillions of microbes that call our bodies home. And understanding the history of these microbial communities could hold the key to unlocking new treatments and preventative measures for some of the most pressing health challenges facing humanity today.
Wow, that is a lot to think about. I feel like we've covered so much ground in this deep dive into Science magazine, from the evolution of plant prickles to the mysteries of the human brain to the mind-blowing discoveries being made at the edges of the observable universe.
It's a testament to the power of scientific inquiry and the incredible breadth of research happening across so many different fields.
It's also a reminder that science is a constantly evolving process of discovery, full of surprises, challenges, and breakthroughs.
And most importantly, it's a journey that we can all participate in, whether we're professional scientists or simply curious individuals with a thirst for knowledge and a sense of wonder about the world around us.
Well said. So to all of you listening, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never stop being amazed by the wonders of science.